Welcome in the introductory remarks. We're right in the midst of it. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about what the LEDS GP and the LEDS Energy Working Group is doing, spending a few minutes on that, and then really introduce the Energy Toolkit to you, a brief overview of what you can find in it. And then we move on to our panelists, Francisco Flores ESP from NREL and Kevin Burke from RETScreen, who are going to present two of the many tools that are showcased in the toolkit. And then we move to questions and answers. And I really ask you to please stay with us to the end. We do a short survey in the end, which is I think only 3 slides, takes you not more than 30 seconds. But that is feedback from you regarding the overall content and the presentations you've heard, and this feedback is very important to us because we want to improve and get better, and we can only do that if we're hearing back from you what we have done well and what we haven't. So next slide, please. What is the LEDS GP and what is the LEDS Energy Working Group doing? I'm chairing the Energy Working Group. We have co-chairs from all key regions of the LEDS Global Partnership. The LEDS Global Partnership has been founded in 2011. It's an international initiative that is bringing together governments, donors, international organizations, everyone who we consider LEDS practitioners. LEDS, of course, standing for low emission development strategies. So all these practitioners, bringing them together and helping them to learn from one another, to support one another, with the ultimate goal of scaling up and strengthening implementation of climate resilient low emission development around the world. The Energy Working Group is just one working group amongst many, one sectoral group. The center of gravity of our work in the LEDS GP is taking place in regional platforms. Until yesterday, there were 3, and yesterday the 4th one was founded. There have been for a while regional platforms in Africa, in Asia, and in Latin America and the Caribbean. And yesterday we launched in Budapest the 4th one for Europe and Eurasia. So there's 4 regional platforms now, and the sectoral platforms like the Energy Working Group that is organizing this event is mainly supporting these regional platforms on activities in the specific sectors that the regional platforms want to do. But there's some global work beyond that as well. There's now more than 160 countries organized in the LEDS GP, and it's become quite an active and I think successful initiative. Next slide, please. The Energy Working Group was one of the earliest, if not the earliest, sectoral working group formed, of course, because of the importance of energy for low emission development, but also for climate resilience. The LEDS GP focuses on both mitigation and adaptation. We promote low emission and climate resilient development in the energy sector through a very broad work program. You're getting a few highlights on the next slide, but on a broad scale it is through learning, through information exchange, also through providing concrete technical assistance to countries. So if you are a country representative or representative of a regional organization and you have needs in the energy sector for technical assistance, we are here to help. So please turn to us, ask us your questions, and we'll see whether we can answer them or we can find service providers for you who can support you in your needs. And we do this through a number of platforms like this webinar, but also in-person events where we bring together energy practitioners from around the world and help them to coordinate and collaborate through the platforms we provide. Next slide, please. Here are a few highlights from our work plan next year, and I think this is the final slide, so no further ado in terms of all the great things we do, but we're quite proud of what we do. We have more than 500 members now in the Energy Working Group, and a very active and very, I think, inspiring and interesting, I'd hope, work plan for next year. One main area in which we work now is communities of practice, and we have started a first pilot community this year on bioelectricity in Latin America and the Caribbean. We've had a number of online sessions with this group, and next week we're coming together for the first time for an in-person workshop. So what is this community of practice? We're bringing in it pilots, we call them, of countries that share certain interest, in this case the interest to develop smart policies on bioelectricity. We bring them together and we help them to learn from one another, to point them to international best practice examples that they can learn from, and we're bringing in trainers who really concretely work with them on their work plans and then try to help them to implement the work plan. So our workshop next week, for example, has really the goal of developing the work plan, discussing with countries where they want to be in 12 months from now, and then walking the walk with them. We have now just been starting to establish a second one in Africa, and we're talking with the Asia platform and the Eurasia platform now about communities of practice in the energy sector there as well. The early phase is to find out about what priority issues are and then design the work plan for these communities of practice and then start implementing them. We do energy trainings at regional workshop meetings. We are working a lot on best case studies, and we're bringing those together eventually in World Atlas on Energy and Development. And yes, we're doing the toolkit, and this is what we're presenting here today. Next slide, please. So what's the Energy Toolkit? The Energy Toolkit is a reference guide for well-established LEDS planning tools and methodologies. And you're seeing in a moment how broad the topics of these individual models and approaches are. So we're not limiting it just to quantitative models. We're also having methods represented in it to focus on gender, to focus on many other important issues that come to the fore when you want to do smart energy planning. We've started with the first version of it in 2015, and it was really modeled very simply on a template. We've sent that to model makers, and we've asked them for what are the data inputs needed, what are the outputs of employing your method, who have you worked with, is it available at free cost, and so on and so forth. And we came up with the first version last year, which has been very, very successful. We had 16 tools in 2015. We have 26 now in 2015, and 26 tools now in 2016. So we've added 10 more tools this year, and we're hoping to update it again in the coming year and come up with a version 3.0 next year. Eventually our goal is to make this a tool that is searchable online itself. So you can go to a website, you can put in a search mask what you're looking for, and then you're getting the tools presented to you in the searchable form that do what you want to do. So we're hoping to make this a tool eventually itself. You see that the toolkit is accessible at any point in time through the WorldWatch website, but also through the LEDSGP website at ledsgp.org. If you can't write down the link right now, again, we have the slides available to you after the session. Next slide, please. So this is the table of content of the toolkit this year. Last year we just put them into the toolkit, I think not even in alphabetic order, but just by the time the tool makers or stewards presented their work to us. This year we've tried to categorize them, and you see the main categories here in front of you. There are tools that, and it's important to point to the fact that they are not necessarily exclusively doing what the category says that they are doing, but often they have other results as well that these tools and methods can deliver. But we've still tried to categorize them somewhat. So one category is cost and benefits, and the JEDI model that we get presented today by NREL we put into this category. It's a tool that helps you model costs and benefits of specific energy pathways, and it does particularly also for the area of job impacts. There's others that look into energy efficiencies. There are others that are broader and look into environmental impacts. There are some that look specifically into de-risking, like the dry model from UNEP, which we put in the category of financial investments. We have 2 tools in this year's kit that help model gender, that do gender inclusion, that help you to design smart policies for gender inclusion. We have some on geospatial tools as well. And then the final category are integrated tools. That's a long list of tools. And the RETScreen tool that we're getting presented in a few minutes is in this category as well. So you see a broad range of available tools that are showcased in the toolkit. Next slide, please. We just put up screenshots here, basically, of 3 tools that are not being presented here today. This is the Metamodel from the World Bank, a relatively simple to use model. World Watch Institute, for example, used it for its energy roadmaps in Haiti, Jamaica, and the Dominican Republic. And it's a very smart and simple to use tools that provides you with levelized cost of generation of different energy pathways. Pretty much at a first stage, at least that's how we employed it, gives you those numbers in a very conservative, conventional manner, but then it does allow you to also assess costs for that are usually in our somewhat distorted markets not reflected, which is local air and water pollution costs, the resulting healthcare costs, and then in the third step gives you an opportunity to also analyze carbon costs, and you can do that in a stage-by-stage approach. So you can present these numbers, first as I mentioned, in a conventional manner, and then include the so-called externalities. So that's the Metamodel as one example. Next slide, please. This is a very successful agenda tool. It's really a handbook, and it provides governments or other energy planners with very concrete and straightforward information. It's a step-by-step really guide for how to integrate gender concerns into energy projects, and it gives very practical tools and examples, and has been a very proven and successful tool for this important issue and to integrate gender concerns into energy planning. Next slide, please. Finally, this is what we now refer to as SEREP, the Sustainable Energy Roadmaps and Implementation Plans. This is a model that the World Watch Institute has developed, and that we have employed now in a number of countries and world regions in the world. It's a broad assessment that starts with a technical assessment, then moves on to a socioeconomic assessment of different energy pathways, and finally looks into financing, the financing environment, looks into identifies barriers for sustainable energy financing and enablers that can help countries to overcome those existing investment barriers. At the very end of it, then you have concrete policies, administrative changes, and governance reforms as the outcomes of these roadmaps. So very concrete recommendations that governments can use. We're providing a full toolbox of action items that they can employ to bring down the investment hurdles for sustainable energy investments, and to set a new framework to advance sustainable energy resources and technologies. So those were just 3 other tools. Very quickly, for all of these tools, again, we're providing input and output data. We're showing for these tools who has used these tools before, so that you can look at those outcomes and see whether this is a tool that might work for your purposes as well. With this, I want to introduce our first tool presenter today, Francisco Flores ESP from the National Renewable Energy Laboratory. NREL, of course, a group set up under the US Department of Energy. NREL is one of the key partners in the LEDS GP. It also hosts the Secretariat of the LEDS Global Partnership, one of our closest partners in crime also for the work we do in our sector. Francisco has a BS degree in electrical engineering and an MS degree in energy management. He has now more than 3 years of experience with the JEDI tool, JEDI standing for Jobs and Economic Development Impact. And it's a great pleasure to have you, Francisco. Thanks a lot for joining us, and now the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and good morning to everyone. Thank you. If we can go to the next slide. This is a screenshot of the toolkit, 2 of the pages of the toolkit. And so now at NREL, we've been developing the Jobs and Economic Development Impact Tool, or JEDI, since 2004. And very recently, we added a new model, which is the international version, which we're calling the iJEDI. And what the model does is to estimate the economic-wide impacts from power generation plants. This model does not estimate the cost of energy, for example, or the net present value, the profitability of the project from the developer's point of view. Those are the things that it doesn't do, just to be clear. It focuses on the perspective of the economy as a whole and what are the benefits that this power generation, and more particularly renewable energy projects provide to the economy. So we have 15 models. All of them are Excel-based, and out of the box they work for the US. They work for many types of renewable energy, solar PV, solar CSP. We also have biomass, wind, and other models for renewable energy. We also have models for fossil fuel plants. And like I said, these are based on Excel, and they can be very easily modified to work in other regions. They have been used outside the US. They just need a modification, but the model is designed to allow for those modifications to be made relatively easy. We also have one online version, and that works for PV systems in the US. That one cannot be modified. And so the international version, which is, as I said, very recent, works for PV, biomass, wind, and geothermal projects. And currently it works out of the box for analysis in Colombia, Mexico, South Africa, the Philippines, and Zambia. However, as I said, the philosophy of the model is to allow modifications so that it can be used in other regions of the world. And so the model, if you have the right knowledge on how to include the numbers that you need, the data that the model needs to do analysis in other regions, the model can be used for other countries or even at the subnational level for other provinces, municipalities, and counties. Next slide, please. So very basically, this is how the model works. The inputs that the model needs are the nominal capacity of the project or projects to be analyzed. The model allows the user to bundle projects as a single project from a certain perspective. Installation cost, sorry, local content share. This means how much of the goods and services needed to build a power generation plant are sourced from the local region, the region of analysis, and of course, what is the region of analysis? Those are the basic inputs of the model. Our model comes pre-calculated with installation costs, local content share estimations, and the user, a very new user to the model, can only needs to input the nominal capacity and the region of analysis, and that will be enough to start doing a very basic analysis. And so through those inputs, the first thing that the model estimates are the direct impacts. These are, we also call them on-site impacts, and these are all the investment that the developer does directly. And these include, for example, labor, all the labor for the workers in the construction site, materials, and professional services, and other direct investments. So the model also estimates the impacts not just from construction, but also from the operation of the plants. And then finally, using the input-output model, the model estimates the jobs and economic development impact to the economy as a whole, the economy of all the region of analysis as a whole. So at the bottom you see the outputs of the system, which are the economy-wide impacts expressed as number of jobs created, the earnings that the workers, the total earnings that the workers get, the contribution of this project or projects to the regional GDP, and total economic outputs. Next slide, please. This model is very popular. We average about 3,000 downloads per year. And when you download the model, we'll ask you for your email address, and this is just to have statistics of who are our users. And we found that the main users include government agencies, universities, consulting firms, project developers, and other research organizations. And for example, project developers may use it to ask for a grant if the grant requires to show what are the impacts, the social impacts of a project that could have on the economy. More specifically, well, we've seen that the model has been used at the national, state, and county level analysis, and specific examples of users include the U.S. Government Accountability Office, GE Financial Services, this Iowa Policy Project and Land Policy Institute, to policy research, nonprofit organizations, and several universities. And we did last year, we researched who has been using our model, and we found 70 articles between 2004 and 2014 featuring analysis that used our tool at some level. Next slide, please. So as I said, the results of the tool focus on the impacts to the economy as a whole, expressed as numbers of jobs created, total income received by the workers, contribution to the regional GDP, and total economic output. The tool presents those results as tables for the construction period, one table, and then there's another table for the operations and maintenance period, which typically lasts for 20 to 25 years. What I wanted to present in this slide are more specific results of papers that we found and how they went beyond just showing the tables, showing how many jobs are created or could be created through this project. So for example, the Government Accountability Office produced a paper on the benefits to rural communities of wind power, and they found that the economic benefits increase for counties that are more highly populated, and they also found that projects that are locally owned bring more benefits to the local economy than those projects owned by outside firms. Then GE, Energy Financial Services, did a quick analysis of the impact for the Treasury of the PTC, and what they found is that sorry, my screen just okay, my computer just went to sleep at the best time. So what they found was that through looking at different types of benefits that the U.S. Treasury got from wind power plants, they used the JEDI model to understand a little better what are the implications for the economy as a whole, and they found that even though the PTC had cost $2.75 billion to the Treasury, sorry, $2.5 billion cost to the Treasury. Can you guys hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, perfect. Sorry, I don't know what happened. My computer just decided it was not a good time to keep working. So what they found, to try to find what is the net present value from the perspective of the U.S. Treasury, they used several tools to look at all the benefits that the U.S. Treasury gets from disbursing the PTC to wind developers. And one of those tools was JEDI. So JEDI helped GE to get a broader picture of what are all those benefits. And they found that the Treasury received a net inflow of $250 million. Then the government-owned utility in Mexico, CFE, the Federal Electricity Commission, they downloaded one of the models. The models are open and freely available to anyone. Anyone can modify that as they wish. And so they use the model to create their own interface and look at their own projects. And so now the model can work for hydro and wind projects in Mexico at the state and municipal level. And one thing they did was to make the results more user-friendly. They are showing the results as a contribution to the municipal economy as a percentage of annual GDP. They have the numbers of what are the local, the regional GDP for each of the municipalities in Mexico, and then the JEDI is able to express one of the outputs is what is the contribution to the local GDP, and they could found as a percentage of total GDP what are the contribution of these projects to the local economy. And let's go to the next slide, please. This is my final slide. What we did at NREL, just as a final example, we looked at the potential impact of the deployment of offshore wind systems in the coast of the U.S. We divided the U.S. in 4 regions, and what you see in your screen are the results for the Gulf region. And this is just one way of expressing the results, and this is just a small portion of all the results we got. But what I wanted to show you is how we use the tool to look at year by year, what are the impacts? And here we're just looking at the jobs supported by offshore wind deployment in the Gulf of Mexico, or at least the estimate that we got. We looked at 3 potential scenarios, one in which there was going to be a high deployment of this technology, medium and low deployment as well. And what we're seeing is the results for the baseline, the medium scenario. And you can see that JEDI produces results not just for the on-site workers, but also how the supply chain is impacted by these projects, the projects that could be deployed in the Gulf of Mexico. And then we also estimate induced impacts. These are the parts of the economy stimulated by the workers when they spend their salaries on food, recreation, vacations, etc. So I wanted to show you just very quickly how the model has been used by different entities, and I think we're going to have a Q&A session later on. Thank you.
We will have a Q&A session after this. Thank you so much, Francisco. Wonderful presentation. Really just scratches at the very surface of what JEDI is able to do, or iJEDI it's called now. I think that's the new name. I think it used to, at least we used to refer to it as JEDI. iJEDI now helps you to do wonderful presentation, and it will be great to get your answers in the Q&A. That gets me to a key housekeeping item that I think I forgot in my introduction. You have an opportunity on your right-hand side, on the right-hand side pane in your window to ask questions. Please use this function even now while you're listening to the presentations. We're collecting these questions and we'll put them forward in the Q&A session. So I'm going to introduce now our second model presenter. His name is Kevin Borg. He's a project engineer with the Natural Resources Canada. He has been working in the energy field for almost 20 years now, has a Bachelor of Engineering from McGill University. He's one of the key figures behind RETScreen in the development team of this clean energy management software, one of the most successful ones on the market, and he has been working on a number of other online learning and modeling tools in the past as well. So Kevin, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. So it's a pleasure to be able to speak to everyone. We have a great showing here, so I'm really excited to show you some things. So I thought I would take an approach where I would just show you directly the use of the software. So I am trying now to show RETScreen on my screen. And it's telling me now that it's taking a little bit of time. Maybe if someone can confirm if they can see my screen.
Hi, Kevin. Confirming that we can see it. Thanks.
Okay, great. So with that, I'll jump right in. So this is Redscreen Expert. It was released just publicly just a month and a half ago. So you are some of the very first to see this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually show you the use of the software in the next 10 minutes or so, showing you how you could use it for different project evaluations. And then later on during the Q&A, if you have any more specific questions or about it, we can do that. So I'm going to show you a new feature that we have. We call it the Virtual Energy Analyzer, or VEA, and it allows you to do remote energy analysis or remote auditing of projects. And so when you're working in energy projects or renewables, there's a lot of questions that you might have about how what type of evaluation. There's a lot of data to gather. So with the Virtual Energy Analyzer, what we've done is we've gathered a lot of that information for you and built an intelligent tool around it to automate and use some optimization algorithms to answer some of those questions. So I'm going to show you how would I evaluate a photovoltaic, a solar project, say, for example, in the American Southwest, and how can I see what the impact of various policy options might be for that type of project. So I'm going to dive right in. So I'm going to click here on the button for the Virtual Energy Analyzer, and I get a map up on my screen. And so you'll see that the idea behind the Virtual Energy Analyzer is by asking 3 or 4 questions, basically what type of project you want to do and where are you. We're able to intelligently use archetypes, typical information, cost data, climate data, and give you a really good idea of whether that project is viable or not. RETScreen is a pre-feasibility analysis tool, so it gets you most of the way there in answering the question, should I commit more time and money to evaluating this project? And it will identify which parts of those projects are viable. So I have here, I'm going to answer these questions in order. So you can evaluate power plants. So for example, gas turbines and hydro and wind and offshore wind and onshore at all different capacities. And the capacity makes a difference because the sizing and the cost is different, and the operation and maintenance cost, the annual cost make a difference. And we have fuel technologies as well. You can also compare multiple technologies, so comparing wind and solar and photovoltaics and emerging technologies. That's on the power plant side. On what we call our buildings model, we can look at industrial facilities, so we can have chemical factories and food factories and bakeries and machinery and plastic and whatnot. And we actually have these ones at the top are full facility analysis. We also have below a benchmark analysis. So we don't have an archetype for these yet, but we have the benchmark data. So sometimes it's good to know, well, I have a sawmill in my, I'm trying to evaluate, and what do typical sawmills consume in terms of energy? And just to see, are you under or over, what should your targets be, etc. That's under the industrial. Under the commercial institutional, we have schools, primary and secondary schools. We have food retail, healthcare, so inpatient and hospitals and clinics. We have office buildings of various sizes with all the equipment in them. These are very extensive archetypes and buildings, and we do the complete modeling, including the cost, the base case, the proposed case, energy efficiency measures. We include renewables on there, solar, water, heating, and photovoltaics, etc. We also have some residential models, so multi-apartment, multi-unit housing, and then we also have some agriculture models that we're developing, so poultry farming and greenhouses. So I won't go through all of those more than what I just have. We'll stick with the plan, and that is how would you evaluate a photovoltaic project in the American Southwest? So I'm going to select a power plant. We're looking at photovoltaic. Let's say that we're looking at a 1 megawatt of power, and using the Google Maps here, I'm going to type in Santa Fe. It's a place I've always wanted to visit, and I've heard it's pretty sunny out there. So the map brings me right there, and I can actually click on satellite and zoom right into an area which might be good for my project. I see there's a lot of land here, and perhaps there's a developer who's looking at maybe putting a large solar plant right here. So I would click here, and now I'm going to click Calculate, and RETScreen is going to create a simulation of a solar farm right there, and I'm done. So in the time that it took me to describe my project, I've actually done a full PV analysis for my project. So, and this applies also to buildings. So if you're looking at office buildings or schools, it really is this quick. And the idea is that we'll get you, 60 to 90% there, and then you go in and modify the data. So that's what I'm going to do now for the next 5 or 6 minutes, is just go through what I've actually done. So you'll see here that we've actually located the closest climate station to that PV project that we selected. So the solar data would actually be coming from the airport near here, and we've actually gone and loaded that. And when we don't have the data from that station, we actually go and get it from the NASA site, and we can graph that for you, so you get a good idea of the climate conditions at your site. So we have over 9,000 climate stations right within the software when you download it. If I move on to the facility page, here I get some general information about the facility. So I can say here that we're preparing this for the LEDS webinar, and it's prepared by myself at RETScreen. And we have more information that you can use to fill in about the project. And these are kept and they're used in the reporting tool that we have, which I'll get to in a moment. And then I mentioned the benchmark for the buildings. We also have benchmark for power projects. We call that the energy production cost. That can be similar to a levelized cost of energy, depending on your assumptions. So RETScreen, this bar right here, is actually the calculated energy production cost for this specific project. So we've calculated that the energy production cost for this project in Santa Fe is 21.3 cents per kilowatt hour, and you'll see it's right within the range that that would be expected for PV systems. And we've gone and calculated all over the world the various costs using current cost data, and we have the energy production costs for all these technologies. So this is a benchmark for your PV project. I'll move along to the energy models. So this is our energy model. If I click here on photovoltaic, I actually have sized my PV plant. I've sized the equipment. I have gone and selected the most recent cost data that we have. We have a cost database embedded right within the software that's customizable and editable according to your currency and exchange rates as well. And we keep this up to date. So here's a power plant project for the installed cost. We also have them for the operation and maintenance costs. We have them for light bulbs and pumps and motors and building envelopes and fans and all sorts of equipment and energy technologies. If I move to the cost sheet, you'll see that we have a simplified cost model here that has taken the data from our photovoltaic plant, but we can really dive deep into the specifics for the projects. Really make sure that we're not missing anything in terms of the cost. I'll keep it simple for now. RETScreen also has worked with the UN and the World Bank on an emission model. So we've actually gone and pulled the latest emission factors for New Mexico, and we calculate the GHG emission reduction. So this here would be 1,350 tons of GHG avoided from this photovoltaic project. That would be equivalent to about 247 cars removed from the roads. And of course, again, here we can go higher and deeper levels to really customize where your electricity is coming from and the costs. And the emission factors. So my initial question was, how would you evaluate the viability of this project? So you could evaluate it on a financial basis. So the financial and cash flow of this project are listed here, including the net present value, the debt service coverage. You can include taxes in here. We have some debt financing, and this is all calculated for you automatically through the software. And of course, when you would change anything in the previous sheets, this would also update as well. So if you're looking at the, say, what would the effect of a certain incentive or a grant be from a policy perspective, or maybe a production tax credit or an incentive to produce green energy, you would use these, and RETScreen would automatically update for that. Now I've just done one project, but we also have a risk analysis where you can run the project many times. So here we can look at the sensitivity and the risk analysis. So the sensitivity, we allow you to vary you can vary the parameters of the project and see, say, for what example, I absolutely need to make my I need to generate electricity at over at less than 20 cents per or $200 per megawatt hour, or 20 cents per kilowatt hour, and RETScreen will show you under what conditions you can get that. And then below here we have a risk analysis where you run the model 500 times, doing what's called a Monte Carlo analysis, and we'll show you where the riskiest or the highest impact parts of your project are, and also show a distribution graph of what in this case, the net present value, where the net present value will likely fall from a statistical model. Of course, after you do all this work, one of the most painful things at the end can be report writing. So we've built a report writer directly within the software that you can go and customize. So we have all the details of your project right in this report that you can customize and then directly send off to your project partners. So I've showed you one project, but of course, if you're looking from a policy perspective at many projects, we now have on this, I've just shown you this, on this circle here, I've just shown you the 3 quarters. You can also look at the performance part of it and the performance of that PV project, what's installed, to make sure that it's doing what you want. And then, of course, you can assemble many projects and see the overall portfolio, say, for a county or a country, or the effect or the impact of different policy changes on that. I'll stop now. RETScreen, you can download it for free from our website today, www.retscreen.net, and I'd be glad to answer any questions as they come. Thank you.
Sorry, it took me a moment here to unmute my microphone. Thank you so much, Kevin. A very exciting tool that I'm somewhat familiar with myself and have used, so it's fabulous. We heard 2 wonderful presentations from Kevin and Francisco. There's a long list of questions. Before we turn to them, I want to briefly mention that we as organizers keep getting pop-up messages here that more participants have tried to sign in, but we're not able to because we have reached the maximum number of participants. I didn't even know that something like this exists. And I'm really tremendously sorry for those who aren't able to sign in anymore because we have too many people on this webinar. If colleagues of you have tried to do that and frustrated about that, please give them my apologies. We will have the recording of the webinar up in about 2 hours after we finish. It takes some time to download it and then upload it again on our website. But about 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, you'll find it on the World Watch website. So hopefully everybody can then get to it, and it's not live and they don't get a chance to ask questions, but at least they have the presentations there. So we're looking into this issue in the future to see how we can add more people to. Yes, on the positive side, obviously, it shows how much in demand this kind of information is, and we're quite happy and proud of it. So that's the one thing. The other is you'll find on our website also other webinars, and we've done, I wanted to mention that as well, webinars in the past where we have given model makers, model stewards a chance to present their webinar, their model. That was one part of the webinar. And then the other was we had countries presenting how they have used this model in their very concrete country case and how it has been used for. For example, the LEAP model, which is also in the toolkit from Stockholm Environment Institute, and we then had a presenter from Vietnam on how they've used it in their country. So you find more information on the toolkit and webinars relating to modeling tools on there as well. So fantastic presentations. Let's move on to the questions. We don't have a lot of time left, but maybe we go a little bit over time for those of you who can. Long list here that my screen shows. I'm trying to summarize a few as we go. A number of questions that I see relate to really sort of the regional functionality of your tools. So maybe you can stress that point again, that it's, from my understanding, downloading for everyone and can be used in every region. But maybe you want to make a few points about where it's particularly valuable, where the numbers that you provide in it, if data cannot be gathered in a particular country, so sort of the token numbers that you use, how valuable they are for specific regions. So let's do a first round, starting with you, Francisco, towards this question of where is it best being used, can it be used everywhere? What's your experience in different world regions? Francisco?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, that's a great question. The tool, as I mentioned, can be used for any region in the world at any level, national or subnational. However, you need to have two important pieces of data. One is the social accountability matrix for the region. That's a matrix that maps out the relationships between the different sectors of the economy. That's one. And the other one is the costs of installation and this is this requires more knowledge of the tool, but in simple terms, that's what I can tell you. And if you search online for NREL JEDI, you'll find our page, and we have an email address for anyone who has questions. If you want to modify the tool for your region, we can help you.
Thanks, Francisco. Over to you, Kevin, and maybe you can include in your answer another question that has come up, and that is, to what extent does the model enable to model costs beyond production? So the inclusion in the net in a very systemic way. So integration costs with the electricity grid, basically. Kevin?
Yes. So RETScreen is. I didn't get a chance to show it, but REDScreen is available in 36 languages. We actually just passed 500,000 users, so over 500,000 people use it. We're growing at about 50,000 users every year. We're in about 700 universities, and we have it in 36 languages. So and that's all within the software. So you can create your project, translate it, and send it to a colleague, and you're able to use a common platform and have a common base. In terms of cost, so yes, so the cost data that we have looked internationally. We are part of the Government of Canada, so we'll take our costs and we'll bring them back to Canadian dollars of 2016. But we do have tools in there and conversion factors to allow for the costs to be used all over the world. So we have, you know, just yesterday I was speaking with someone from South Africa and Ireland and South Korea and Brazil. So REDScreen is used internationally and is not limited to the cost data is not limited to just one region.
Thank you, Kevin. Next question for Francisco, because Kevin answered that in his presentation, and that question is relating to whether you just model the cost of renewables, or is there an opportunity to compare these so-called levelized costs of electricity generation from different renewable sources also to fossil fuel resources. I know that the Metamodel, for example, that the World Bank has, that we've been used for Sustainable Energy Roadmap, does exactly that. It even allows you then to come up with overall saving costs of one energy pathway over the other. How is that in the case of JEDI, Francisco?
Yes, we have models for both renewable energy plants and fossil fuel plants, so that a comparison between between different technologies can be done, definitely. However, levelized cost of electricity is not one of the sorry, the outputs of the model. The outputs include more indicators from the economy, the economy of a region perspective. So, for example, we have a number of jobs created, and the income that the workers will receive. So that comparison is possible. However, not the comparison of the cost of electricity.
All right, thank you, Francisco. Next question for Kevin. To what extent does your model assume retrofit of existing plants or newly built plants? Can you make the distinction in the model?
Yes, you can. That's a great question, actually. So I showed you the photovoltaic model. So the photovoltaic model assumes that your base case is going to be buying electricity from the grid, right? But when we're looking at the buildings model, I mentioned the factories and the schools and the office buildings, it becomes very pertinent whether you're looking at a new or a retrofit. And RETScreen can do both. And the difference is what you assume your base case is. So RETScreen, practically, when you're evaluating whether a project is worth it, you always have to say, well, worth it compared to what? So in RETScreen, we have the base case, which is what you're comparing to. So if you are, let's take a concrete example. Suppose you have a heating system in a building, and it's very, very old, and it needs to be replaced. It's broken and it needs to be replaced. Well, your base case isn't your very old system that needs to be replaced anyways. It's what you are going to be replacing it with. So if you say, well, I'm going to be replacing it with a more efficient system, your base case shifts. If, however, the system is working fine, and you're looking at a retrofit, your base case would represent what is currently installed. So both can be done, and it just requires a little bit of reflection on what you're doing your base case. So we do RETScreen for both new and retrofit, new construction and renovations.
Wonderful. Thank you, Kevin. We're going to do a final round of questions for both of you in a moment. But we have been asked as the LEDS GP, how can you join our group? How can you join the broader LEDS GP membership, or how can you join the Energy Working Group? It is very open. You don't get an ID for it, but you can join at any given time. And you see our contacts here on the screen. Please get in touch with us. We're always looking for new members. Please send us an email or contact us by any other means. The final round of questions, and for those of you who didn't get their questions answered, be sure that we're collecting them and that we're putting you in touch with Francisco and Kevin, depending on who the question was asked to get your question answered offline. So you still have a couple of minutes. If you haven't put in your question yet, we're not going to answer it online during this live session anymore, but we're going to put it forward to our two great experts here and make sure that they get in touch with you about answering them. So final round of question I have for you, I'm going to combine two things here. And the question goes to both of you. One is, how often do the data sets get updated? do you reflect climate changes, so say water availability? Is there a chance to model future climate impacts with your models? That's the one question. And the other is, how, at the very broadest sense, how easy do you really think it is to learn to use the model? Are there tutorials around, if I come freshly to this, I've never done modeling before, are you actively helping people to learn how to use the models? Tell us a little bit about what tutorials you have and how easy it is, you think, to use. So one data question, the other one the question of how easy they are to use and where people can find help. I want to start with you, Francisco, please. Hello, Francisco?
Okay, thanks. Yeah. So yeah, these are a couple of great questions. I'm going to start with the tutorial question. We do have a couple of videos in YouTube. I'll send you, Alexander, the links, and then I'm not sure how we can distribute, but we do have some help. We also have documentation about JEDI and the international version, which we call iJEDI. We have a couple of user manuals, and I can send you the link as well. Regarding how often data is updated, unfortunately, I think we don't update. I mean, we don't have the resources to update the data as frequently as we wish. However, as I said, the philosophy of the tool is to let the user be able to change the underlying data very easily, as long as they have the knowledge. And we have the, as I said, the user manuals, which will help any user with the right knowledge to update those numbers at any time. And we know, for example, that solar costs are going down very rapidly. So we have default numbers, default costs, which is the best estimate, but I think I will recommend any user to update those numbers as often as you can.
All right, thank you. And then Kevin?
So to answer the question, so how frequently do we update? We update at least yearly. So our cost data, we're going to be updating on an annual basis. Our product data, we have like 13,000 products and PV panels and so on in there. The cost data will be updated as necessarily. For example, LED lights have fallen 20 to 30% in the last 12 months. Whereas, say, reciprocating engines or gas turbines have been stable for a couple of years now. So we update as necessary. In terms of the learning tools available, yes, right within the software we have links to a couple of videos, tutorials, and we actually have plans over the next couple of months to add to that. So please contact me if you're interested to know when those are scheduled. We could work together on that. Also within the software, we have a help manual that has a couple thousand pages in it in English and French. We have templates and case studies, which are real projects that load right in the software and can be used for, it's about a 2 or 3 week self-study course, sorry, a 2 or 3 semester self-study course. And it is actually used in universities around the world, and there are several trainers and training institutes that are active doing RETScreen training on an almost weekly basis. There's some RETScreen course somewhere in the world. The last question about climate, how do we take into effect that? Yes, so RETScreen has climate averages in terms of our climate data, but if you're doing a performance analysis project, we are connecting directly to near real-time NASA satellite data. So any climate effects which would be shown in weather data would be there, and there's nothing preventing you from using that or calculating your own climate impacts using that data.
Fantastic, Kevin. So no more excuses for anyone. These tools are available at no cost. They can be used. It's easy to learn how to use them. They have proven to be very helpful. I want to thank you so much, Francisco. I want to thank you, Kevin, for presenting here. Please don't sign off yet, people. There's a short survey. It takes you 30 seconds. In a moment, I want to mention that the toolkit is now online. It has now been officially launched, and you'll find it online on our website at worldwatch.org. I want to thank NREL and the LEDS Global Partnership for hosting this webinar. I want to thank my colleague Phil Killeen for organizing it and, as usually, doing most of the work. And that's it for today. Thank you so much for joining us. Keep your eyes open. Please help us distribute the toolkits to all you think who can use it. Thank you everyone for joining, and now please do the survey. Goodbye.